Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is part 5 of the horrible mother-in-law saga story. Of course, if you are seeing it for the first time, it means that you need to go watch the other parts. For those that are up to date, let's continue. This is one of those stories that will infuriate you from part 1. Like every part of it, there's something to annoy you about.
This is the night
Let's get ready.
everything exploded. Part 5 of my Mother Gothel series. If you're new here, this is about the years of manipulation from my mother-in-law that almost destroyed my marriage. Everything that I am talking about actually happened. I write it out because I get nervous on camera and it helps me say things clearly. I have never done anything like this before. This is just my real story. So let's get into part 5. Around this time, Colton got a new job working as a travel tech for a nuclear power plant. So we would leave the state in spring and fall for like 2 to 3 months at a time. So it didn't make sense to keep our apartment anymore. We moved in with my parents. When we were home in state, we tried to see Penny once a week. I wanted a set day, something predictable, like every Sunday we're going to Nani's, but it never worked out like that. She always had her reasons it couldn't happen. And when we were out of state, I tried really hard to keep the peace with Penny. I FaceTimed her almost every day. I sent her pictures constantly. I dressed my daughter, who we will call Everly, up in little outfits, and we would go for walks. We were in North Carolina a lot during outages, and I loved it. The weather was beautiful. It felt like a fresh start. I talked to Penny more than I talked to my own mother. I was trying to move forward. I was trying to forgive the past, the attacks, the villainization, everything that happened between me and her and Colton. Holding on to anger is poisonous, and for a while, things were quieter. But quiet is not the same as healed. We were back in state between outages, planning our October wedding. It was August. Everly was about 8 months old. My sister was my maid of honor, and Colton chose my brother as his best man. We didn't really have a big friend group. We were focused on building our own life. My brother was already married, and he had been in weddings before. And because we were gone for half of the year, our maid of honor and best man had to take on a little more responsibility than usual. And this is where things start to get messy. Kieran was about 16 or 17 at the time, and much later we learned that Kieran was hurt by this decision, and we never knew. He never talked to us about it. He doesn't really talk to us. Penny fractured that relationship.
But if I'm being honest, from the story she's saying, if it were to me, there's no way I'll choose the Karen too. Because you're not nice to my wife and you're rude to me as a brother. So why would I choose you as my best man? You don't deserve that. Do you get? So why should you give up
Permanently? And honestly, at the time, we assumed he'd never want to do that. He was a social teenager. He was always out with friends, never home. If we had known, the conversation would have been different. We didn't think he'd be interested in the slightest. But there is a lot more to unpack when it comes to Kieran and Max, and they are going to have their own episode soon. So it's August, the day of our Jack and Jill party, and we were leaving that night for Georgia for another outage. And there's something I haven't mentioned yet. It was a rule that I was extremely strict about. No smoking around my baby. And I really don't think that's a controversial boundary. I have severe asthma, we know this, and some people never really cared about that. But when it came to my child, it was non-negotiable. Growing up, cigarette smoke-filled rooms were normal for Colton's family. His grandparents were 2-pack-a-day smokers, and Penny was a pack-a-day smoker. But when I got pregnant, I enforced it. No smoke around me, no smoke around my baby. Penny knew the rule. She would smoke outside and wash her hands. It had never been an issue. I did not care who liked my rule. I did not want my daughter affected. We already know that she could end up with asthma because I have it. Up until this moment, the rule had never been a problem. So the Jack and Jill party had both families there. It was a really good night until it wasn't. You know, people were laughing, were playing the stupid little games that you play at those parties, raising money for the wedding. It felt normal. It was nice. Penny brought her sister and her mother. Now, her sister, we had problems with in the past. Even Penny had problems with her. They had a history of physical altercations. During the party, Colton and I were about to play a game. The person who raised the least money got a pie in the face. So I handed Everly to my sister so we could play. And around that time, Penny, her sister, and her mother had just come inside from smoking. You can smell cigarette smoke immediately. During the game, Penny's mother walked over and tried to take Everly from my sister. They waited until I wasn't holding my baby. That's when they decided to try and take her. They had been smoking all night. She had not washed her hands. My sister said no, and that's when everything exploded. It escalated instantly. There was no calm conversation. Penny's sister started yelling, and not just raised voices, screaming, aggressive, escalating fast. Her mother joined in. Penny stood there. She didn't stop it. They started accusing us of letting other people hold the baby who had been smoking. That's not true. I don't play favorites when it comes to my child's health. So my family started yelling back. We're a family of very headstrong women. The baby was handed to my mom, and the fight spilled outside. Colton was outside too. He was trying to separate people, trying to calm it down. Penny's sister grabbed my little sister by the dress. She took off her shoe and raised it like she was going to hit her. I was standing on the balcony railing, ready to jump on top of her. And Penny stood there. She didn't stop her sister. She didn't stop her mother. She just watched. Colton was furious, but also in peacemaker mode because that's who he's always been. He grew up managing her emotions, trying to de-escalate everything. So that's what he was doing. Penny might have also been yelling, I don't remember, and I won't embellish what I cannot recall. But this was a health boundary for my child, a rule that Penny had no issue with up until that night. Eventually, it was broken up, and when they left, my family clapped as they walked away. We left for Georgia that night, but what happened wasn't left there. And honestly, at that point, I didn't even blame Penny for the fight itself. She didn't grab my sister. She wasn't the one who raised the shoe. That was her mother and her sister. But she stood there. She didn't intervene. She didn't try to de-escalate. And when you're the bridge between families, silence matters. Colton's dad, we will call him Vaughn, wasn't even at the Jack and Jill party. Apparently he had better things to do, even though Colton is his only son. Now remember, Vaughn has a soft spot for Penny. Anytime he took Colton growing up and Penny demanded him back home, he complied. We left that night for Georgia, and that's when Vaughn called. Colton also gets his easygoing nature from his dad, so when Vaughn called him screaming at him, it was shocking. He had spent hours on the phone with Penny, and by the time he called Colton, his mind was already made up. I don't know exactly what Penny told him, but whatever she said was enough for him to immediately turn on his own son. Based on what his ex-girlfriend of 24 years ago said, he refused to listen to Colton's side. He told Colton he would no longer help with the wedding that was 2 months away. Vaughn had offered to pay like $3,000 for the venue. That might not sound like a ton, but it was to us. Colton was devastated. Not just about the wedding, but being treated like that by his father. His dad believed a version of events without even asking him what happened. And once again, Penny turned someone against us. And once again, suddenly we were the villains for enforcing a health boundary for our child. We were sitting in a hotel room in Virginia. We had just driven 10 hours. Our daughter was asleep. We were exhausted. 2 months away from our wedding, and suddenly we weren't sure if we'd even have one.
Wow. I think the penny saw it as an opportunity, and a thought that just dropped in my head. It's possible that she was the one that instigated those women to come do that. She must have been the one that instigated. She saw it as an opportunity to drive more weight between this woman and her child. She saw the opportunity and she took it. She took it hook, nick, and sinker. She took it without thinking how this would affect her son. She doesn't even care anymore. Oh, somebody said, I don't know who needs to hear this, but keep in mind, telling people what happened is not talking. Standing up for yourself is not creating drama. Holding people accountable is not holding on to bitterness or anger. True. Laying down a boundary is not holding a grudge. It can take a long time to learn this, especially if you grow up with abuse, managing other people's emotions, and are a peacemaker. Yes, I speak from experience. Oh, like what just keeps ringing in my head? The kind of trauma these people must have had to endure from an early age from a parent. Guys, I'll see you in the next part.